Welcome, everybody, to the Dr. Leadership Lounge, where we have conversations with business leaders from all walks of life about how and why they are successful. Hey, welcome, everybody. Another edition of the Leadership Lounge. Dr. Leadership here. The doctor is in, and I am very, very excited about today's guest. A couple of housekeeping items first. Remember, you can reach out with commentary and questions via our email, which is at drleadershipresults@gmail.com. And you can also catch us on our website at www.drleadershipresults.com. That's drleadershipresults.com. And we'd love to hear from you. The crowd continues to grow, and the Leadership Lounge is getting lots and lots of good feedback for those people that have joined out in the membership site. And today is going to be a very exciting edition because I'm very blessed and feel very special to have Miss Melissa Ness, Connectify HR's CEO and founder. And Connectify HR is a professional employee organization located in its headquarters here in Des Moines, Iowa. And I want to welcome you to the show, Melissa. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here and honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me on this great show.
Well, I appreciate that very much, and the check's in the mail for that great feedback right there. Melissa and I, for the listeners, have had an opportunity to kind of get to know each other over the last couple months, and it's really been great to get to know her. We found out we had some former compadres and people we'd worked together with over the years. When I was down in the Carolinas, her in Des Moines, it really is a small business world when we met for a coffee here a few months ago and started talking about this. So I kind of feel like she knows a little bit about me and my background and a little bit about her too. But, to kind of get started, Melissa, tell us a little bit about Connectify HR because it's really an exciting story.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. Connectify HR is a PEO, which stands for Professional Employer Organization. You mentioned that a little bit ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so really what that means is we provide payroll, HR, benefits, workers' compensation services to small to medium-sized businesses.
Awesome.
And so Connectify HR was born, I'll say, about 2 years ago, but was born and really came together with some seasoned professionals who have, over 120 years experience in PEO. And so, our vision is to create and provide world-class customer service for our clients. And we're pretty passionate about that.
Yeah, it was really evident when we met that your passion, you wear it on your sleeve, and, your journey to have that much experience, first of all, I don't want to call it a startup by any stretch of the imagination, because you were chief financial officer of, I believe it was Orion, which was formerly known as Mera Resources. And you've had a journey up through this industry for a long time, and you really just kind of felt you could do something even better, and the community really jumped in with you too. So how did it come about? You say it's 2 years old. What was kind of the impetus of this, and what caused you to step into that big pond, right? I mean, a lot of people don't understand what it's like to start your own business, and there's some anxiety there. What caused that to happen? What's kind of the backstory there?
Yeah, well, I think it was really, I'll say, something bigger than me that kind of brought it together, and it kind of felt like a path that had already been laid down, I'll say. But really, there's a great need. I saw a great need here in Iowa and Des Moines locally for this kind of service.
Mm-hmm.
HR and employees and being an employer has never been harder. It just continues to get harder. And the PEO market is underpenetrated. It's severely underpenetrated nationally, but in particular here in the Midwest, including Iowa. So,
Mm-hmm.
That combined with a great partnership group, a great team, and the know-how, it just seemed like, all of our careers were built for this and brought us to this point.
That's great. Now, when you say business is getting harder and harder, I don't want to assume anything here, but are you just really talking about compliance and regulatory engagement and the requirements from federal oversight and state oversight? Is that what that kind of means, or what's a little deeper on that?
Yeah, I think those are great examples of things that are harder for, small to medium-sized businesses
Mm-hmm.
to keep up with. Also, just as we've seen, through the pandemic and leadership and culture and, how do you handle remote employees and policies around that, but also just the leadership piece. So those kinds of things, I think, just put an even bigger spotlight on the need to have great policies, practices, culture, better technology to create a better employee experience. So those are all things that we help with and can help those businesses who need that support, bolstering, enhancement to really kind of shine a better light for them.
That's great. And I appreciate the insight there because you said something that resonates with me, of course, is the DR leadership guy. When you said leadership in throughout that, I count on my HR support personnel. I work for a very large organization too, so we have a dedicated staff, but we utilize services outside of our own personnel as well. But when you get into small to medium sized businesses, it starts with an idea and someone has a great skill set about the service or the product maybe that they're delivering, but may not have the leadership skills or the insight or the tolerance, the ability to gain the expertise for all the things that a business needs or is required to have to run.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
the leadership thing really resonated with me because one can be a great leader of a sales organization, but not employee relations and or benefits and all the different things. So, what got you into the HR side of business to begin with? What was your journey into the industry itself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm actually, it surprises most people, depending on when they met me, they think of me as different things, but I would first say that kind of the theme of my whole career has been working with small to medium sized businesses, entrepreneurs, if you will,
Yeah.
and growth companies. And as I kind of just dovetail all that together, I think, or I hope, but my background is public accounting and accounting. And so, like I said, it surprises some people, but as I went along in my career, I started in public accounting and then moved to private, of course, starting in finance areas of those private companies. But through that process, I was able and had the opportunity to learn more aspects of the business, but also really discover how much I enjoy leadership and how much I enjoy working with people. And so by the time I kind of landed at Merit Resources in Urbandale, Iowa in 2007, that was a PEO.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's where I kind of got to marry that love of small to medium sized businesses and growth companies and PEO, working with people and in leadership in that HR function. Um, and I didn't know it at the time, of course, but really, as I got
Self
to know,
discovery. That's right.
yeah, self discovery, a lot of it over my career, that's for sure. We don't always know everything, or at least I didn't, right
I
away. And I'm
certainly
still,
didn't either. Yeah, I'm right there
yeah,
with you.
yeah, but just that ability to help people and lead people and not just those that I led on teams, but with clients and helping them with their employees, and that really moved the needle for me and kind of lit that fire of passion.
From a leadership standpoint, people always ask me why are you in leadership, right? And of course, the DR doctor leadership, I play on words. It really stands for driving results, but the doctor leadership side, why? And I'm like, man, I just love. There's something about the people interaction side of it. To see the light bulb come on, to see someone else succeed. I get a lot more high fives because I get to count on other people being successful, So it feeds my juices. I don't just have to count on me when I make a bucket in the proverbial game of life, but I get a high five others. Was there anybody like growing up or when you first got in the business world that was a leader, a family member? A lot of people say their parents, which is an absolutely big one for me. But was there anybody that you saw as a leader that just was like, man, that's kind of what I want to do someday? Or was there anybody in particular?
Yeah, so many people I can point to, and same as you, my parents were great leaders to me and just great support in my journey. My mom was a youth pastor for, I don't know, 30 or 40 years.
So
And
the pastor's kid. I know that explains a lot about you suddenly.
Yeah.
My best friend
Yeah.
growing up was a pastor's kid, and he was everything the stereotype said.
Really.
Yeah, and
Oh,
I
that's fun.
tongue in cheek, but I'm just teasing. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, no, that's okay. Yeah, she was a youth
That's
minister, and
awesome.
just I watched her lead those kids and serve them and, work to move the needle for them. And she also worked so hard and spent a lot of time teaching me and us kids how to work hard and take responsibility and be humble. And of course, as a teenager, I did not appreciate that. I didn't see what a gift she was giving me. But as I've gotten older and also tried to teach those same things to my own kids, boy, I really feel like I won the lottery. And just her leadership and kind of, I'll say, inspiration to me, I really appreciate that. But my dad was also a great leader of the family and model with his job. And both parents, they came to watch every game and track me. Again, I don't know how they did that and sitting
It
on
is
those awful
amazing. Yeah,
bleachers
yeah, no
day in,
kidding.
day out. And
They didn't have
with
the
the
comfy back seats that you can get with the team logo on and stuff in those days.
no,
It was the fold out bleachers where I was growing up anyway, and
same.
as uncomfortable as possible.
Yeah, that's the same. Yeah. I mean, I could go on and on. I had my brother who's now passed away. He was also an
Sorry.
entrepreneur and just, went after it, but always he was 6 years older than me, believed in me and, kind of pushed me to do harder and harder things all the time, even as a kid. And again, of course, when things like that are happening, you don't see the benefit. But as I look back on my life, I can really point to pivotal times like that where, he'd take me out in the backyard and say, "Hey, let's play catch." And he'd say, "Can I throw the ball at you as hard as I can?" And I would say, "No, that's scary. I don't want to do that." And he would say, "Yes, but I believe in you. I know you can do it." And as
How
that kind
cool
of,
is that?
yeah, it was very cool. The ball stung in my glove, but what also stung was just, hey, I did that. He believed in me. I did that, and it created some muscle memory around doing hard things.
You got to kind of lean in. A quick funny story. You're talking about that, so you're playing catch. So I was a late child. So I have a sister 11 years older, a sister 16 years older, and a brother 18 years older. So my brother was gone. He left for college when I was born. And he chuckled at my mom when she said, "We're having another baby." And she said, "I don't think it's very damn funny." And what I think her exact comment was, but they finally got it right, as I always tell my siblings. And then my oldest sister, she was gone and out of the house and on to her college education and then life when I was very young. So my closest relationship, just by association and proximity, growing up, was my sister that's closest in age. And when I got to 8 or 9 years old, she was, 20, back from college and things. And I'll never forget, we went out in the front yard, and I was a first baseman and a third baseman. At this time in my life, I was a pretty good first baseman. I always wanted to pitch. And I went out and I'm like, "Play some catch with me." I had a game or something. I can't remember, but I think I had my uniform on, warm me up. She goes, "I'll go out with you." And Mom went out on the front steps and was watching us in the front yard. And she goes, "Come on, give it to me." She's hitting the glove together. Give it to me. She thought she could handle it. And I threw a ball, and I don't think I had a very good breaking ball. I don't remember if that was the case. And she missed it, and it hit her right on the inside of her ankle bone as hard as I
Ooh.
could throw it. And it was a screech and a hobble. And, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And on the ground, we got one throw in that. She could handle it,
Oh,
but she missed it. So it's so funny you bring that up. I hadn't thought of that in probably 30 years until you just said that. And I'm like, I got to get that story out. My siblings it was very similar, right? Very successful people, successful spouses, and all of them successful because of hard work and dedication. And I've said this on another Leadership Lounge episode, but my dad kind of led with, "I only expect you to work half days. You pick which half, 7 to 7 or 7 to 7," right? I mean, that's just how it works. And I had another gentleman that owns Accurate Development here in town, Kevin Johnson, and his dad said, you work 40 hours to stay even with your competition. After that is when you build value and differentiation. And it's not that you got to work 90 hours your whole life, but you can't do it with 40 either, can you? Not to be where you
uh,
are, I wouldn't think.
yeah. No, it's no, it's definitely not. It's tough. I have had to learn the value of resting
That's
though,
right. You
and
have to have balance. There's no doubt.
yeah, there's be some give and take there, but yeah, certainly have worked more than 40 for my career, that's for
And
sure.
and you do that young. So my kids are now going to be 26 and going to be 23 this summer, both of them, and they're on that first few years deal, and you really do have to go hard. That
Yeah.
22 to 30 age group. It's just it doesn't feel really rewarding, but it sets you up for the great years to come when you can kind of taper back and you get a little more control of it. But well, that's great to hear about those inspirations. My parents too. Was there anybody in business that really was like, man, that's some good skill sets there. I'd like to maybe be like her someday or him. Was there anybody there?
Oh yeah, a lot. A lot.
And
I
some of
don't
the
know.
other way, some of the other way too.
I feel
Not going to
like
do
I
that.
just sort of, collect, if you will, great inspirations, and I'm fortunate to have so many around me. I mean, yeah, I so many. I just Steve Lacey is somebody that I've been meeting with monthly through Vistage, and Joel Duncan is my business partner, and Ro Crosby is someone who has mentored me, and Katie Ross, and I mean the list could go on and on.
That's
I'm
awesome.
fortunate, yeah, be exposed to and get support from and inspiration from so many people around me.
And I think that's important in life because, continuing education, continuing inspiration, continuing self development. I certainly don't have this thing figured out. I've been in leadership almost 30 years now, and I don't have it all figured out. I learn something literally every day, too. You know, you have, feedback is a gift if you choose to accept it, is something I say a lot from people. Don't take it as negative. Use constructive criticism. Use your ears, not your mouth. All those things help you throughout life. And as soon as you think you got it all figured out, the industry's moving. So you can have it all
I
figured out from 10 years ago, but, you know,
totally agree. Totally agree. Yep.
so
Huge
yeah.
of development. Yep.
Now, so let's talk about the company a little bit because, this show is about leadership and, it was built around, you mentioned a few things a minute ago that underserved area leadership was important to you. The pandemic made impacts. You could see an opportunity for development. I mean, let's face it, you started this business in the middle of a global pandemic.
Yes.
That's courageous. That's
Yeah.
courageous. No, I'm serious. You deserve every bit of kudos there, and you're very humble. When we met before, and you do a great job of you're self accountable, but you also understand. You use words like teams and we and us. It's not the Melissa show, and that is a very very important leadership characteristic because you can't be all things for all people and all items that you need to do. So in this journey, when you started it up, how are you building the team around? What I guess the first question is, what are those core characteristics you're looking at? Because you need to be very selective, but you can be very selective right now to pick. You got to have the right cornerstones coming in because you're building it as we sit here. What are the important characteristics that you kind of put around your quote unquote culture, let's call it, at Connectify?
Yeah, that's a great question. I just saw a speaker the other day, and he was talking about if you had to redraft your team, who would you pick? And essentially, that's what I got to do. I got to redraft, and boy, it was fun. And those core competencies or cornerstones, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
I call our values or our power C's is what we like to call them.
Very cool.
Um, we created those together, kind of the first leadership team. And for us, those are compassion, competence, community, and connection. And so, yeah, those are the cornerstones of kind of everything we do when we hire, when we do reviews, when we do recognitions. Those are important to us and we talk about them with great frequency.
That's awesome. We call them pillars. Every industry or every company kind of puts their, I don't want to say marketing spin. That sounds negative almost, but puts their kind of approach on it. And we have similars as well. And I'm a Japanese owned company. So you have, the three loves: yourself, your country, and your community, etc. And I love the community add to it. I love that you have a focus to it. Your recognition is around it. Those are great things because you got to live it and breathe it. Because what I've seen is a lot of companies put up a great face, but then don't practice what they preach. They don't eat their own cooking,
Hmm.
and it has really been a challenge for some people that I've interacted or watched. Let's face it, I'm all over the country and I call on a lot of different people, a lot of different personalities, a lot of different ways to approach business. And there's good ways and there's bad ways. You have to live it for it to be realized by the employees. They aren't going to believe it if you don't believe it.
Yep. Yep.
Now,
Totally agree.
how do you do that in your hiring practices then? So when you're bringing somebody in, do you have conversations around the specific four C's, or how do you make sure that that's going to be not instilled in them yet? How do you ensure that it's a makeup that they can play within?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's so important. We talk about them in the interview process. We spend time talking about kind of behavioral questions
Mm-hmm.
that we're able to see demonstration of those core values. Um, we we do an assessment. It's, that doesn't really specifically get to core values, but indirectly in some ways it
It's kind of
can.
a baseline, sure, sure.
Yeah, yeah, it's a baseline. So, but yeah, and multiple people talk to those new hires. We spend a decent amount of time in that new hire process wherever possible, for both people's sakes. And, we talk about that with those candidates. We really want them to find the next right place and the next home for them. And so it's important to us that they have that an equal opportunity to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I always say in the interview, I 100% agree with you. If there was more than 100% in 100%, I'd give you that. I always say to them, you're interviewing me too, and
Hmm.
you're interacting with us too. We and this goes back, but some old things are still good, right? It seems like in the name of quote unquote progress, I'm doing the air quotes here, in everything in life, some people seem to think you got to get rid of everything from the past. And that is a really big issue for me because there's learning along the way. But in this specific example around hiring and things, we used to look at can do, will do, and team fit. And the team fit is for both sides. And the can do is the easiest of the three, in my opinion, my humble
Yeah.
opinion, because hey, on your degrees in the right area as an example, or you've got prior experiences in similar industries, or your skill set is evident in you know what you have on your document here. The will do is that's where the behavioral questioning, like you mentioned a moment ago, comes into play because you got to dig it out of them. Everybody says everybody's raring to go, but not many can go for raring. I say a lot too. It's you talk this good game, but is it really going to come out? And you got to dig a little deeper, and then that team fit goes to what we were just talking about, which is are they going to fit in here, and are we going to fit for them? I mean, are they the person that they want to be, and would we help them be more of that, or would we help them get further down their journey, etc. So
Hmm.
now, how many employees do you have now? Because the growth when we met for coffee here, you were 18 months in, and you said number of employees. And I'm like, you're kidding, it's fast. How many now?
Yeah, we're at 14, and actually we have offers out for three more, and it sounds like
Wow,
two accepted, and we're waiting on a third right now. Yeah, it's
that's
going fast.
outstanding. Yeah, that's outstanding. And the other thing, you mentioned community again as one of the four C's. Tell the story about how the community kind of engaged you around this, because I came home and even told my wife about that a little bit after our coffee about how community kind of surrounded you. I'm like, you can't believe it. This is awesome. I mean it. What?
Yeah,
Tell
it
that part of the
was.
story. That's incredible to me.
It's one of my favorite parts, and so inspiring. Talk about inspiration and just
Yeah,
community has been amazing, especially in the beginning. I mean, they continue to be, but especially in the beginning. And I think it was just so new and took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting. the level of support we received. I mean, people listening and referring us and telling their friends and colleagues, simple things like buying me a cup of coffee and offering advice, or hosting awareness sessions with other businesses, helping us get set up on different areas, giving us space to kick off our event. I mean, it goes on and on. And
That's just
it just,
awesome.
yeah, it really solidified my vision of giving back to the community. I mentioned that in our values and Power C's. So
Yeah.
yeah, with every employee we serve, we give back $3 and 3 minutes of service back into this Des Moines community for every employee we serve. And boy, do we have fun doing that. Every quarter we pick an organization that's nearest and dearest to the next internal employee's heart, and we go and we support that together. And it's been a ton of fun. And I just, this community gives us all so much, and it only works if we keep paying that forward, over and over again. And that just compiles and stretches and moves. And yeah, it's been one of the most fun parts, and I really have enjoyed it.
That is a very, very special thing that you need to be very proud of. I know you are, but I'm giving you affirmation here to give components financially and to dedicate to a fixed rate when you're first starting, when you don't know how well it's going to go and how long it's going to go that well, etc., is to be commended. And the second comment, I lived in the South, the Carolinas area for about 16 years, and I said I was coming back to Des Moines, and I had a lot of people kind of tilt their head, and they just don't understand how special and how well kept secret the Midwest is. And I'm going to broaden it out more than just Des Moines because I don't want to sound so biased. I am very biased about Des Moines. But
Me too.
yeah, it's a very, very, and Iowa holistically, there's competitive spirit. You went to one university, I went to a different one. But the community gets together and has fun, and there's lots of affluence. There's great leaders. Our core values are very strong. The education available, the healthcare available, the industry available, the social, economic, the giving, the philanthropic approaches of the community. It is a very, very special place, and I love hearing these stories. And for all those listeners out there, you don't think about it often. It's considered this flyover country, but every single best places to live, best places to retire, best places for young people, best places for entertainment, best places for cost of living. Every time you open it up, there is major components of the Midwest involved in that, specifically Des Moines, Eastern Iowa, kind of the river cities, the Quad Cities as we refer to them here in the Midwest. It just resonates over and over again. USA Today, it's probably been 5 years ago now, but for the hipsters, they kind of called it, but young professionals and entrepreneurial spirits, Des Moines was number one in USA Today. And when it's home, first of all, I have family. Do I miss the weather right now in March? Yes, I do. Do I miss being able to get to the beach in a 3-hour drive and pick 5 of the greatest beaches on the east coast? Sure. But that's what vacations are for, and we're getting down there in May to see my one daughter that's still down there and my nephew down in naval training. And it'll be great to visit, and tons of friends there. But Des Moines is very special, and it's nice to hear from you that when you were building this thing and launching it, how good it went. How good it went.
Yeah, it was so incredible.
That's awesome. Now, I always kind of throw this in here. So you're a CEO of an organization that's growing real fast, but what do you want to be when you grow up?
Great question.
What's your aspirations, right? I mean, I know you have other
Yeah,
things. You got great kids, you got a wonderful marriage, you've got, the business thing happening. What else is on your to-do list here in life? You don't have enough time, I'm sure. But
no,
what else makes Melissa tick?
it's funny, throughout my journey, I'll say I wanted to be a CFO. And when I was a CFO, I thought, well, I really want to be a president. Well, I was a president, and I really didn't seek out to become a founder or an owner like this, but here I am. I would really say I've decided that what's most important to me to strive for is being a little more loving every day, unconditionally, being a little more content and being a little more present, and just doing those three things to the best of my ability is kind of where I'm at, no matter what I'm doing, no matter what day-to-day function or how I'm serving or what I'm giving or receive, whatever the case. That's what I strive to be.
That is awesome. And did that kind of blossom during the pandemic and the time at home and such, or has that been kind of a heartbeat for you for longer than that? And the reason I ask is I'm going to give you in a minute, but is that
That's a good
something newer,
question.
or is that something that's really resonated with you to concentrate on for a longer time?
I think it's a foggy picture that's become more clear over the years, and
Mm-hmm.
certainly the pandemic gave me personally some time to let it become less foggy. I'll say I had
Mm-hmm.
taken a big career change, and my team went from 450 to 20, and I wasn't traveling, and so I had more time to think about that. What's
Yeah.
really important, and at the end of my life, what do I want, and what will I be happy about and not happy about? And yeah, I think that probably accelerated during that time.
The reason I kind of bring it up is, you made mention to you had a very large team, and I have a large number of people that I am blessed to work with every day and have some, accountability for. And I think that I attach it to, I don't want it because I need to be, it's not from a famous standpoint. So when I talk about this, I kind of struggle with the words here, but I want to leave a legacy that is about important things in life. Business results are great. It's long forgotten. My employer is going to survive without me for decades to come, right? But
Yep.
if I can leave people impacted positively, if I can be
Yeah.
examples, if I can have my children continue to grow up to be the awesome people they are, if I try to be a little bit better husband all the time, and that one's a struggle for all us guys. So go easy on your hubby this weekend. We struggle with this stuff, but and your kids, and that being present. I love that, being in the moment a little bit. My wife and I have found ourselves very happy at home on the weekends. It used to be, let's go, let's go, let's go, out to dinner and then out
Mm.
to this deal. And we still give and we still do those things. We went to a wonderful thing at the Playhouse, all children. It was called 100 Dresses at the Des Moines Playhouse this last week. And it's all fifth and sixth graders that do this
Aw.
play. And we were invited because my wife's aunt, a friend of hers daughter was in the lead. And my wife was like, you don't have to go. No, I want to go. First of all, I want to spend time with you and your aunt, who we have a riot with, and get out for a nice dinner. And then we're sitting there, and you're kind of looking around going, this looks like it could be really corny. And it wasn't Broadway-esque at all. But we had so much darn fun because we were in the moment. We got to talk to the kids afterwards. There was a whole bunch of other kids in there. It was opening night, too, so we got to see them, with a little bit of the nervous Nellies going on, too. But we lived in the now, like you said. And
Yeah.
I strive a lot around connection and giving. I talk a lot about the village, and the village is that community aspect. So I love how you tie that together. And that is a very, very good response. I ask a similar question in a lot of these, and you get a star for that answer. That was an awesome,
Yes.
awesome answer. And there's several stars along here so far. But now let me ask you a question looking back here. So, what would you tell the younger Melissa? Let's say you're cutting your teeth, you're coming out of school again. If you could, be the angel of Christmas past and talk to yourself there, what direction would you give yourself for your younger self? What would be something, the feedback that you'd give as the and now sage old advice, right? What
Right.
what would that be?
Well, I mean, I would say first, I'm a believer that everything happened for a reason and needed to happen, and I don't regret or take back or wish away anything.
That's a
And
great thing. I agree.
I would, it's just do the next right thing and work hard, trust the journey, be present, enjoy the journey. And most of all, sometimes it will be so hard and you won't know why, but it'll all make sense later. Just trust in that. That's even today when I know that and I can look back and I can see the purpose of things, still I'll kind of question, but it's like, this is clearly preparing you and doing something that you need. So trust the process. And so that would be something I would reiterate to my younger self. Whether or not my younger self would listen would be a different.
I'm not talking when you weren't listening to your pastor mother. And I can
Yeah, right.
imagine the teen, so sons kind of slip away from their fathers at kind of those early teen years, and daughters slip away and they go to the other direction, right? They become the mama's boy or the daddy's girl type stuff goes on. And it's when all the chemicals are trying to get aligned in those young little minds. But I'm not talking about going back to speaking to that young self when I ask that. It's really in the business area. My wife has I don't know if it's a card that I've seen her have several times. And it says, I didn't say it would be easy. I said it would be worth it. And you have to allow the hard times to let you have good times. You need to understand to be successful at anything. If it's your favorite hobby in the world, you didn't pick. I've got a young lady that is one of my directors that has an unbelievable artistic capability. I mean, she did professional art for a while and then came back in the business community 15 years ago, and she's pedaling back in, and she's been pedaling back in for 8 or 9 months, and she's got a gallery opening in New York in May. And
Wow.
I mean, it's just like people have so many gifts, but those gifts, very few, me not at all, are born with a savant capability, right? Where you sit down at the piano and out comes, Beethoven. Or you sit and you suddenly have an artistic capability from none. And I've talked to her several times about that. It's taken years. She changed how she did a lot of animal portraits and things of that and nature portraits in the past. Now she's doing this real funky ink on canvas stuff with different chemical reactions that cause shapes to appear. And she goes, it took me a while to find my medium, and from an artistic standpoint, that's true of people in their work and personal lives too. What you are today doesn't mean it has to be what you are tomorrow. And continue to progress. And I'm up on a soapbox here, suddenly being the doctor leadership guy to all the people listening and thriving off of your input here. But trust in that process. Like you said, just keep going forward. People see success. There are people in this community that look at Melissa Ness and go, wish I could be her, man. She's got to have it so easy. They have no idea what it took for you to do what you do, right? They have no idea.
Right. It's that that iceberg
Yeah,
analogy.
exactly right. All they see is the tip and everything down there.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And that's the thing for all the listeners out there. Whatever you want, that's why I asked, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it allows these types of conversations to come out of it, right? It's how did you get here? Where would you like to go? And people that are successful do what unsuccessful people don't like to do. I'm not picking on unsuccessful people, and success can be a lot of things. I'm not talking financial. Maybe that is the most successful thing in someone's mind, financial independence. Maybe it's the ability to give to the community. Maybe it's the ability. I know some of the happiest people in the world. One of my wife and I's best friends is a librarian. Zero cares in the world. Happiest person I know. Success to her is she gets to read story time to kids twice
I
a
love
week.
that.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so it doesn't have to be that you got to climb Mount Everest to be successful or to be the highest of highs. It could be, you know, standing at the crosswalk with kids when you get older. It can be being a mentor, being a tutor, whatever it might be. But all of that takes hard work, dedication, etc., to get those skill sets developed. So fun stuff.
Absolutely.
So you're a parent. What are you telling your kids these days? Because let's face it, society to be a parent. I'm glad mine are going to be 26 and 22. How are you leading in your family these days? And I don't want it to get too interpersonal there. So please don't, so you still beating your kids, Melissa? Yeah. I'm not, it's not that, but how are you giving these gifts that you've learned down to your kids? You said that you didn't always see it with your parents, and it can be frustrating because I did a whole podcast, not a whole podcast, but a big piece on how kids today are more in tune with doing the right things for their social media status or friendships than what their parents have interest in them being good at. And how do we get the village past that? Because likes are not how the world goes around. There are very few people that are going to be the next, and I thank goodness, Kim Kardashian or insert, influencers or whatever. How are you giving to your kids these days, or what do you find most important there with kind of the next generation of our youngins?
Wow, that's a big question. I think some of the same things that I was taught with my parents is taking responsibility and working hard and being humble, being curious. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
a really great quality of be curious, not judgmental. I don't know if you're a Ted Lasso fan, but I'm a huge Ted Lasso fan.
Love Ted Lasso.
Yes,
The next season's coming. We can't wait.
March 15th, 5 days.
That's right. I'm not
But
keeping
yeah,
that close of tabs. You're stalking.
I'm stalking. I'm stalking. Yeah, I mean, I want them to learn and, be a lifelong learner like we've talked about. And I think, if they do those few things, they're going to be fine.
You nailed it.
And
You're nailing it. You're nailing it. In my opinion. That's right. And don't don't take what you're given by any source as the gospel, as the go out and test things, Don't be disrespectful. I'm not saying that, but read and look
right.
up and discover, like you were saying, and engage in things that you're not comfortable in. I can remember when my kids were starting the interview process, and texting was big, and there wasn't TikTok yet, but there was Instagram, and gosh, what was the one before? I don't even remember. There was another app that is now gone or been bought by somebody. That'll
Oh, my face.
No,
Was it
it
my
was no, it was so Facebook, of course, and then there was another one. I'm drawing a blank, but they're getting ready to do interviews, and all the time we're saying, put the phone down. I'm guilty of it too. My wife and I, it is everything to everybody now, right? It's your work email. You don't you don't work from home. You now live at work if you aren't careful. But they were getting ready for the interview process, and it's like it was rudimentary questions sometimes, like, well, what questions should I ask? Well, what questions do you think you should ask? Can I text them to find out what time they want to meet? No, I'd like you to send an email. I want you to drop off the resume. Simple steps that kids aren't real comfortable with that we have to teach them along the way on. And it was just really interesting. So, did you find out what's the compensation like when they were getting ready for the first? Well, I didn't ask. Well, do you think maybe an important step would be if it'll satisfy your budgetary needs for your apartment, your groceries, and your car? And well, yeah, but I mean, is it okay to ask that? Yeah, once you're to a certain step in the process, that is an important one. And
hmm
building that confidence up in them, it. I guess I'm on a real tangent here, but society is very tough and very passive aggressive, texting and email and those types of things. And the interpersonal skills have to come back. We have to be better neighbors. I guess I'm feeding off you're trying to be better every day and you're trying to be good every day. That's that village stuff I'm referring to when I bring it up. Is
It is.
let's get
It
back
is.
together. I had a breakfast meeting or kind of men's club we talk about here in the neighborhood. I've got three gentlemen that are all they're all retired, and I'm still several years away from that. And some have been retired for quite some time, and we have the best time. And I do more listening than talking. They may disagree with that, but that's false if they say that. But it's just great to get out and talk. You know.
Yeah, it is. You hit on something that I wanted to add to my list for young people is, and I see it with my kids, is being uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
is putting yourself in not dangerous situations, but
Right. Right.
I'm saying just be a little uncomfortable in what you wear, even in uh, yeah, going to introduce yourself to someone, dropping off that resume,
A
asking the
handshake. Learn it's okay. Look people in the
hard.
eye, right?
Yeah, I've noticed a decent amount of that here. And so just trying to figure out how to encourage them, give them support and opportunities to be uncomfortable, which is where our growth comes from. I'm a
That's
huge
right.
believer in
I
not get
yeah.
better and grow unless you're uncomfortable or get some feedback whatever the case may be. So I do, that's a big thing for all of us, including young people.
When I talk to my individual contributors, when I was a younger manager and they were newer reps, we do the kind of the starter reps. You were the account executive, not the client executive. Titles go up. The more letters in your acronym, the more important you are, right? So, tongue in cheek there. But
Yeah.
they would say, well, I just don't know how to get to this next step. What should I ask? And I would say, what would you be most uncomfortable asking? And that's what you should ask. And because it'll progress. Either yes or no is going to come out of that, and they'll appreciate candor is good in business. Not disrespectful candor, but being able to sit down and have an honest conversation. You're in the services business. You have to be able to find out what the objections or what the holdups are for your company, I'm sure, every single day. And you got to
Yep.
have people that have the courage, not like a cape on and jumping off of buildings, but the courage to lean in to some uncomfortable situations. It's where growth happens. It's where resolution happens. It's where agreements happen. It's where benefits and financial rewards happen. This stuff doesn't just come to you. And
Hmm.
I love that. So, what are your hobbies? What do you think? What do you like to do in your spare time? Both minutes of the week.
Both minutes. I like to read. I'm a big reader. Um,
Anything particular? Do you try to get? Do you kind of release your mind in that space, or do you focus on business stuff, or is it all over the place? What do you like to read?
it's both. My two kind of favorite themes, I'll say, is leadership. I love any kind of
Yeah,
leadership book. I'm reading Prime to Perform. If you've never read that, it's fantastic.
I have not yet.
It's about internal motivations, but also to kind of release my mind. I like kind of like murder mysteries,
Yeah,
fictional books like that. So those two are things. We camp. So when April 1st hits, that's when most of the campgrounds open in Iowa. We'll start camping. We have a camper and we'll pull it around to state parks and
that's
Iowa.
wonderful.
And yeah, I enjoy that time to just be out in nature and unplug. And there's something. So speaking of, we talked about a lot about inspiration. I get a lot of inspiration from that.
I do too. I love being outside my wife as well, and we're so we had planned last year. We were going to rent an RV, and we were going to. She'd not been to Yellowstone, and 20 years ago, I took my two daughters when they were young. We packed them up, and my first marriage, and the kid's mother, and we did 10 days. Went out through the Badlands, the Black Hills, Yellowstone, and then the Tetons and back. And it was so great for the kids. And we're outdoor people, so we were going to do that last year, just her and I and the dog. And then she took on some additional responsibilities and just couldn't step away. So we stepped away. And I think we're going to try to reschedule it this year because it is just, you need that. It's a battery charge.
Mhm.
And
It is.
I get a little spiritual jump out of it. I mean, nature is so, there's just a lot of good energy to that.
I
And,
agree.
you just get
Same.
in front of the computer screen and more phone calls, and you got to balance it. You just got to balance it.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely
Awesome.
good.
So, on your journey as a leader, if you were to kind of pick a couple of characteristics, so starting a new business, which you did, so you had been inside some larger organizations and took on more and more responsibility. If you were talking to an entrepreneurial spirit and person and they were thinking about doing their own business, what would be the sage advice from you on that?
Doing a new business. I mean, of course, making sure they had something that people wanted.
Yeah, that's
you
true.
know?
You better pick a good item to
Yeah.
sell or engage with.
Yeah. It's one thing to love something and be passionate about it. It's another for people to want it and to, have enough demand. So, making sure they have great information about the demand, the pricing, making sure they can make money doing it, or at
Sure.
least enough to accomplish their goals. And so putting, a decent amount of thought and time into a business plan and financial pro forma. I'm pretty passionate about those things.
Right.
And then just as I kind of talked about, finding the right people to surround yourself with to set yourself up and to set them up for success. So I think those are all the key components.
I agree. It's good stuff. What what were you knew we were coming on here today, and this is about Connectify HR and Melissa. I want to make sure that we touch on anything that you had kind of in your mind to discuss today. You got great people. You're in a great community. You've got a great set of products and services. You're doing it better than anybody. I mean, in our conversations, it was your focus and your drivers are the right things in what you do because you're handling some of the most important things for employees in their daily lives, in their work lives. Was there anything today that you wanted to get across as a message about your organization or leadership holistically? I want to make sure we touch on that too.
Well, thank you for the kind words and for having me on here. I would just say leadership. I wanted to be on this podcast because I'm a huge believer in leadership. It's my favorite thing. And
Mm-hmm.
I love the work that you're doing to put a spotlight on that. I think it's a thing that we can all continuously work on, and it truly makes the world a better place. It's not only good for the people becoming better leaders, it's great for their employees, which impacts their families, which impacts their children. I mean, it's a huge ripple that happens. And so I think, my only last thing would just be to thank you for the great work you're doing to highlight leadership and its importance in our lives and our community.
Well, I appreciate that. Now I got to put a second check in the mail. Well, it really has been a pleasure, and I look forward to continuing to talk with you because I can learn a lot from you, and I hope that I can deliver a few nuggets to you. And leadership is very important to me, as you can tell. I put this thing together because my aspirations when I was younger was I was going to write a book, and you just can't do it because it's one and done. It's too static. It's not able to kind of interact with topics of the day and some of those things. And some people, I think, we're growing. We're up to just under 70 countries. I've got listeners in just under 70 countries now. And it's, the one person in Nepal, I don't know what I'm delivering to them, but keep listening. And I'm not kidding. I look down and go, Nepal? How does that work in the reporting? But I appreciate it. Some Sherpa over there is leading a group of climbers to the top of Everest. That's what I'm picturing in my mind anyway. Going, we must keep moving forward. Dr. Leadership says so. I don't think that's what's happening, but if I could get my druthers. But I appreciate the kind words because the reason you're successful is your passion and you live it. This nothing is fake in anything about Melissa Ness. And your company is going to continue to thrive to go from one of you to 17 as soon as that last offer is accepted in a 24-month period is phenomenal. And I know that your customer base is growing. Listeners out there that are in the Midwest, engage. You can find Connectify HR. It's Connect and Simplify brought together is where that name came from. They will make your business a better business. Engaging with Melissa and her staff will have positive impacts on your personal life and your business life. Reach out to her and her staff. Let them engage with you and enjoy the ride. And most importantly, for all of you, you're awesome. Keep that shit up.